All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am a new face. I'm temporarily stepping in for Janelle. She is not feeling well today. So, just going to be part of this panel with this amazing star studded cast of AI experts in the room. While we wait for everyone to join, give people a few minutes, please go ahead and post in the chat and let us know where you're calling in from. And a quick icebreaker question to our speakers. The question is, if you could tell your younger HR self one piece of advice, what would it be? So
Okay,
give us
first of all, Sarika, I am young still. I mean, I don't count this 40 plus not being young. Let's just take that out. But if I think rephrase it to if you want to tell your probably a little bit more reckless self, then yeah. Sorry, Amy, you wanted to start. Go ahead. Just on a lighter note.
Do you want to start? Who's going to start and give us their advice while we get people joining us?
Oh
I'm happy
gosh,
to
yeah,
start. Yeah, or Brandon, you want to start? Go ahead.
I've got a really quick one. Then I'll pass it right over to you. It's easier said than done, in retrospect. But I think I just would have been more fearless. There were definitely times earlier on where like I just didn't say the thing as clearly or directly as I ought to have, and much more comfortable playing that role now.
I can go next. I'm Amy Mancarelli, and man, I've got like 10 different things I wish I could have told myself. Um, I really wish I would have dove into other parts of the business sooner. I I took some opportunities, but I tended to stay in my silo a little bit in HR. So I wish I had started that sooner and been able to get ahead a little bit sooner and learn more about the business faster.
That's a good one, Amy. I'm the reverse. I was like never in HR and then was on all different parts of business and ops and client stuff, and then found my way into HR like, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago now.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, if I have to go back and tell my reckless self, I think these would be during my MBA days, and I'm going to tell myself that don't worry, you're making the right decision by choosing HR as your subject. Because everybody at that time said, choose finance, choose marketing, you'll make a bigger progress. But I think I chose the right profession, so I'm very happy about that.
I love that you still feel that way, even
Absolutely.
after like the world just changed,
Yeah.
and just the last 5 years alone. I also got my MBA, and I didn't study HR then. So, but still, like, really good experience to learn all facets of the business for sure. Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing with us. So we are a few minutes off the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Real quick, I'm going to do just a quick introduction on who we have here on our panel and what their profiles are. I love this. So we've got Brandon, who's our CPO from, is it Zapier or Zapier?
Zapier makes you happier.
Oh, okay. That's a great way to remember. Okay, from Zapier. Probably seen Brandon everywhere right now talking about AI and automation and how they've been really driving this transformation at Zapier over the last couple of years. I know myself, I've learned a tremendous amount from him. So we're super happy to have you here today. And he is our strategist. We have a lot of strategists here. Okay. And then we have Manjari, VP of People at Miro. We are also on an Human Capital AI Council together. And we've like built some different things together to support the HR community. More to come on that front and down the line. And also another strategist. And then of course, yet another strategist. We have Amy here, who's our Senior Director of People from Bloomerang. I always want to say Bloomberg, but Bloomerang. And then I will be your temporary moderator today. I know I'm not your typical one. I'm CPO at Bitjard. Super excited to be here with this group today. Going to learn a tremendous amount. I follow all of these folks on LinkedIn. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you folks either in real life or some blend of the two, but this is a great group to learn so much from. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get things started. But first, for those of you who are new to GoProfiles is a modern AI employee profiles and directory hub with built-in employee recognition and awards. And Janelle, who was their typical moderator, was a previous customer, and she would say that their product does a great job of balancing the new need and desire to use AI while building a people-centric culture and organization. So if you'd like to explore GoProfiles, they do have a free plan you can check out, and we will drop that link in the comments momentarily. Awesome. Okay, so today's discussion points, what we're going to be talking about is across 5 different areas. First, human-centered AI. We want to explore strategies for integrating AI tools without losing sight of empathy, culture, and employee well-being. Obviously, this is super important to us as we sit in the HR function. Learn how to lead organization, redesign roles, workflows, and experience with efficiency and humanity in mind. For those of you that follow Brandon, you've probably already seen some new roles are popping up at Zapier. So it'd be really cool to learn more about how that's coming to be and our role in that as HR leaders. Discovering frameworks to assess and mitigate bias in AI-powered HR systems. Hear from the group on real-world examples of HR teams that are using AI to elevate, that's the big keyword, elevate, and not replace human potential. And then gain insights on building trust and transparency with employees, and of course, a tech-augmented environment. For any of you that are on this call today and listening along, please feel free to post any questions, comments, or anything in the chat during the discussion. And we will also make sure we will have about 10-15 minutes at the end for a live Q&A with this group. And we'll make sure to come back to these questions. Okay, so first question, and I'll let any of you take this, whoever feels most compelled. As AI becomes more embedded in HR processes, how can we as leaders ensure that the technology that we are using enhances, not replaces, the human touch in our employees' experience?
Mhm. Manjeri and Amy, you should tell me what you think. But what we're seeing with our people team here at Zapier is that AI is helping us abstract some of the things that have nothing to do with human touch, so that we can actually spend some more time doing the things that do. And to give you some examples, I think some of the lowest hanging opportunities that a lot of us are seeing in HR are things like, how can AI help us answer common employee questions that have very defined answers, right? It's not a big moment that matters in the experience. It's not a place where they don't want to be talking face to face with someone. It's just like, how much PTO do I have left? Or am I allowed to work outside of my kind of home country? And if so, for what length of time? These are basically answers to policy questions. And how much time, even today, do our teams spend answering questions of that type? With AI and automation, we can get our employees a lot of those questions answered automatically, which means better service for them. And then you can just naturally think of the bandwidth that frees up on our own teams. And that's kind of the opportunity in front of us, is as we start to realize some of those gains, how will we spend that time? And I'm willing to bet that a lot of our people teams will invest some of that time in things where the human touch really counts.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. Our team has really been focused in on the employee experience and being sure that that's what we're using AI to improve, so that those moments, those touch points that really matter are still human. So similar to what you said, we've been focused in on the timing challenges. So fully remote environment, our team lives and works in Slack, and questions come up. They have problems they need solved. We've been really focused on, okay, they're in Slack. Let's build there. Let's make sure that they can go there at any time of day, whether it's within the working hours of the HR team, and get the answers that they need. So that's been a really cool thing we've built with a company called Console to be able to have that access for employees. And then the other thing we've been focused on is reducing the manual work for our team. So when I think about the talent process, we've had a lot of work that our hiring leaders have needed to do around the intake, scorecards for our hiring teams. And so when we've looked at, okay, how can we remove some of that friction? We've looked at an overlay for our ATS, and it's been kind of like a guiding North Star for our team, is removing the friction that the business has with us versus removing the friction that our team has with our own back-end systems, so that we can simplify and streamline for everyone that, every employee needs to interact with us. And we want to make sure that their experience is really being improved as a result of the AI that we're implementing.
And this is an interesting point. Sorry, I was speaking on mute earlier. I think I would always go back to something that Josh Person says, and you fall in love with the problem and start solving the problem, and you end with it. There was a recent report by PwC talking about it was a research, and they literally highlighted the 64% of customers that they researched said that they would not prefer to have AI implemented in any of the customer support calls, etc. It's fine to have the first questions, but at the end, they want a human touch, especially things like financial issues or your credit card. Imagine your credit card is blocked or something. You don't want to talk to AI, you want to talk to a human. So I
Mhm.
think if I replicate that into the employee experience, it's pretty similar. Looking at where do you bring in, and simple example, just to add to what Amy said, um, there's a very widely known product out there called MetaView. We experimented in a previous organization, and even in Miro, we are a customer of MetaView. And it is a note taker, yes, but what does it also do? It basically augments the experience for the candidate. It also augments the experience for the interviewer themselves. So I think this is where this aspect of looking at where can we augment that experience, but it also should fall in line with the problem that we are solving for the customer, and not just because we want to reduce the staff cost on customer support and take that away. I think that why is super important there, to keep that at the helm on the experience part.
Manjay, there's something that you keep pointing back to, and it's like starting with the problem. And I often get a lot of questions from folks, even in my own organization, as I'm leading AI transformation inside, is like, where do I even start? And I think it's such an interesting question. And I generally tend to say, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve? But I'm curious, like, for any one of you that are obviously driving a lot of transformation, where did you start? How did you first get started yourself, like within the context of your role in HR? And then as people that are helping to drive that transformation across the business, how did you get other people encouraged to start?
I think that's, Tarak, I'm happy to kind of take that question, and eager to hear Amy and Brandon's experience there. I'll share my experience from OLX, where I led AI transformation for the talent team and talent acquisition team in particular. I have a mantra which I usually divide between saying that AI can augment, it can amplify, and it automates. So these are the three ways I look at AI. And very simple, and I think this is also why, and you would have seen this in our different conversations in the Human-Centric AI Council as well. I say that the functional leaders and the functional experts are literally at the helm of the transformation that we are walking into. A lot of people may not agree with me, but it's not the CTOs and the CIOs, it's actually the functional leaders who will take this helm. And why? Because the functional leaders understand the workflows and the processes. That's what helped me to understand what parts of the talent acquisition process are practically grunt work. That's what I would want to automate. What are the time consuming activities? Definitely, I would want to automate. Where is it that people literally have human touch? How can I amplify that human touch? Amplify, say, even the insights, etc., that come out from talent acquisition to leaders or business or predictive ability there. And as I share the example of augmentation, so when we talk about note takers, when we talk about candidate experience AI products, I think those are the augmentation aspects. So you need to look at all the aspects of a workflow, and this is where the trick comes of functional experts being at the helm, and also looking at where do you want to implement.
If you
Brandon, you
saw
do
me
a
nodding, yeah, if you saw my body
yeah.
language, like yes, like plus 100 to that. Well, and just to emphasize one thing, because I know a lot of what we're talking about today is this notion of like AI transformation in a people-centric way. I think so much of what we just heard from Andre like emphasizes this, right? It's like for a couple of reasons. One, our subject matter experts, whether it's in total rewards or talent or people business partnering, like they know the work, but they also know the end user of their work better than pretty much anyone, right? They have a sense of what excellence looks like. And just like we heard, they also have a sense of where the pain points are. And they also
Mhm.
have a sense of what's on the backlog. It's like those opportunities we could just never seem to be able to pull forward because the day to day is so overwhelming. And so I just couldn't agree more with that. And then, well, what's an upshot? When you're prioritizing opportunities, kind of like we just heard from Andrea, it's like, we're looking for the things that are impactful, like we'll have like measurable business impact. We are looking for the things, especially in the beginning of the AI journey. We also were looking at things that were like relatively straightforward to design and ship, because our theory of the case was, while there may be some super high complexity things we can build over time, we're also trying to build like the team's fluency and confidence and trust in these AI products and solutions. And so we were looking at first for the intersection of, again, business value and kind of ease of building and maintaining. There was a third thing though, which is, and which of these opportunities would represent a genuine win for the people doing the work? For the people doing the work,
Yeah.
who say, hey, I'm glad it was great for other employees, or I'm glad it's great for the customer, and I'm glad it saved the company some money, possibly. And I feel more capable as a result of what we just did. But also, like, my job is just better now as a result of what we
Yeah.
pulled off.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it a little bit of a different angle than you two. I'm going to look at it more from the broad organizational perspective, and Bloomerang and what it is we represent. So we work with nonprofit customers, and so the example that you gave around customer support being so important, that's been a really key determination for us, is how can we continue to support our nonprofits in a way that still meets them where they are and they feel like we are here able to support them. So from an organizational perspective, I ended up teaming up with our CTO and our VP of IT to help launch AI initiatives at the departmental level across the organization, which I really appreciated that partnership, because as we think about how do we help move the needle for our orgs, we can't do it on our own. We need to have those leaders alongside us. And so to have the systems perspective for IT, to have the technical perspective from our CTO, and then the people lens that I bring, I feel like it's really been a great combination. And then when we met with those departments to kick off their initiatives, one key driver for us was, don't want this to be using AI just to say we're using AI. So we're not going to tell you what it is you should be doing. We want you to talk and look into and experiment with the top 2 to 3 use cases that are best for your teams. That way they've really owned it and they've been able to push it forward. So it's not on other teams on us to say, hey, where are you at with this? You need to keep going, but rather they've been able to identify what's most valuable for them. And then now they're continuing to drive it. We had a really exciting example. We share out these examples weekly to the company. And we had an example from a team where I remember when I did the launch call, they were kind of not really thinking about things. It was not top of mind. They hadn't really done much experimenting. And then last week, 3 members from the team presented what they had done as a result. And so it was super exciting for me to see, okay, we had that kickoff call. And then just a few months later, they've implemented use cases and workflows that have really helped save time for them.
I love that. Can any one of you share, I mean, like a practical example of where AI or automation, I sort of look at those things as the same, like one and the same a little bit, improved employee well-being or the employee's experience without sacrificing, the empathy or the human connection, and like, right, like they had a better experience as a result of layering in some type of like automation.
Mhm. There's kind of like a meta example I can share that builds on what we were just talking about. Any place we are able to use AI or automation to like make work suck less, like that often has a well-being benefit, right? You take, there's so many, and it's not just in HR, right? You look at your sales team, you look at your product managers or your engineers, like, a lot of our teams are trying to do a lot with a little, and that can lead to all kinds of well-being related pinches. And so there are probably, in addition to that, some like very direct well-being use cases where AI can play. So I'm excited to hear from Amy and Manjari here. But the number one thing you made me think of when you asked Sarika is just when we help people make the work more manageable, more impactful, more purposeful, more human. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do to influence well-being in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back probably to the note taker and meta view example. That there could be other note takers as well, not just talking about meta view. But we had an interesting experience with it. I think one on the very human psyche side, a lot of interviewers got pretty scared because they thought that all the notes could be assessed to see how good of an interviewer they are, right? And initially, we hardly had any adoption. They were more scared than candidates. Candidates were fine when we were asking them, is it okay that a note taker comes into the interview? Um, we had some evangelists, so we kind of used evangelists to popularize it, and then ultimately saw a great kind of an adoption there. And here, I think one thing, especially in tech, what do the interviewers not like to do? They don't like to spend time in writing scorecards, and that's the best thing that happened when they saw the first time. Okay, a little bit apprehensive, but when you see the summary, and then you can also ask, and there were of course a lot of enhancements. You can also ask a number of enhancements on, hey, can you reword it, and what does this say, what was this question, etc., etc. So when you can look at those summaries, you don't have to write a word. You're looking into a person's eye rather than typing or making that keyboard noise, etc. All those things are actually making that experience more empathic, that you're looking at each other, not writing. Plus, it's taking away so much time and literally enabling you, okay, let me go back to that question. Exactly what did this person say? So sometimes also taking away bias. You might have thought and felt in a particular way during that process, but you can actually go to the facts with what was definitely said in the interview. So this is literally enhancing that experience for both the candidate and the interviewer, I guess. This is just one example that I could think of, taking away a negative part of the psyche as well as adding something positive.
I
I
love
have
that.
I was going to say, I have an example that I think expands beyond kind of what we think of when we think of the work life, and it seeps into the personal life, holiday schedules, PTO schedules, payroll. With the tool that we implemented in Slack, we've been able to have team members who are, trying to plan their vacation on a weekend or wondering about what can I do for medical leave to be able to take care of my loved one. They don't have to wait until Monday morning in order to get those answers. And so we've seen questions like that come in outside of normal hours. And for me, I think that makes such a big difference because I've been in that spot. I wasn't always in HR. I've been in HR, for a little over a decade now. But I remember I had some tax questions and I needed help. And I remember it was a weekend and sitting at home thinking, oh gosh, I don't know. I need this form that I didn't have. And so being able to see that employees can get answers when they need it, when their personal life is made so much better by that, I think to me that's been a really big win.
I love those examples. And I really love the point, Brandon, you made is like it's used for developmental purposes. Like even with that interview note taker, like, are you going to use this to tell me I'm not great at interviewing? Well, that's not the point of it. And that's the same true. I just got off a call with our legal team before this about having the meeting note taker on all of our internal calls, with the caveat of some calls they wouldn't join. And they asked that question, like, are you going to use this to ding people on their performance? I'm like, well, that's not the intent. But then again, if there's something in there that I observed in a meeting that I could coach somebody on to improve their developmentally give them feedback, why would we not do that? Like that's part of work, and that's part of what we're here for, is to make each other better and work better. So I know someone had a question around that we'll get to. I'm going to shift course just a little bit and talk a little bit about org design, new roles coming about, like this, I'm trying to dispel this, anyone's going to take your job and there's going to be no jobs left. Like, sure, like any new innovation and in the history of innovation and technology, something might go away, but then so many cool new things come to be, right? New roles, new opportunities. So how is AI enabling you inside of your organization to redesign roles or workflows or employee experiences to create both efficiency and a stronger sense of purpose? And we started to touch on this. It's like automating some of the grunt work is giving us time back to do the parts of our job that we really love, that make us get up in the morning and get really excited that we're bringing this kind of impact. But alongside that means that there's new roles that are coming about as well that are going to allow us to do that, better and faster. So curious how you're looking at that, and what you're seeing inside of your own organizations.
I can quickly share three. The first two we have implemented, and the third is an idea. And actually, we'd love feedback on it. So the first two, we have a new job responsibility within the people team at Zapier. We called AI Fluency Captain, and we have two of them. And these are two of our not just like skillful builders with AI, but folks who are just really good at coaching up others as well. They just have those like great coaching, like kind of development skills. And so their job title has not changed, but they do have a new additional responsibility, which is to host hackathons and demos and workshops and office hours to scale the fluency of their peers on the people team. I think it's been really meaningful for the two folks who are playing this AI Fluency Captain role. And practically speaking, they're really helping the team. More formally, we staffed a existing member of our people team into a brand new role at Zapier that we call AI Automation Engineer for HR. And this person's job is, as a complement to the AI Fluency Captains, is to actually practically help folks across the people team build their next big use case with AI and automation, because some of this stuff is non-intuitive, and even folks who have climbed the learning curve fairly well, me included, get stuck. And so this AI automation engineer is the person who helps unstick us and make sure we deliver, and make sure that the things we are delivering are designed in a way that is where we have humans in the loop where they ought to be, that inspires trust and safety with employee data. So they just have like, oh, this is basically like this blueprint or this checklist that they like help teams run through. Those are the two we have right now. One we're thinking about, actually, Amy, you made me think of this, is in the talent acquisition area. This role, which we haven't staffed yet, would be called something like talent attraction engineer. And so instead of having like a team of traditional sourcers, we would have, by the way, a great profile for this person would be a sourcer, like someone who really understands the craft of sourcing and talent attraction, but then also has developed some of the AI fluency. This person would basically build the machine, right, that enables us to much more meaningfully personalize our outreach and our ability just to be like timely and responsive to candidates, period. Which, like, I don't know about you all, like we can never hire enough sourcers to do that at a high level in the conventional way, but this talent attraction engineer concept could enable us to do that, which again has like real human benefit as well. It takes a lot of effort at Zapier, for example, to respond to candidates within 7 days, which is our commitment to applicants. And we do it, but it's a huge investment, and it'd be really great to have a helper for something like that.
I'm just curious, like and more for the audience also, is how did you even, like, how did that even happen? How did you even come up with the idea? How do you pitch that to, like, whoever the powers might be inside of your organization, that this is like something that we need to invest in? Like, how would you encourage HR leaders that are, or HR practitioners or leaders that are on this phone or on this call to do this, to think about creating roles and pitching this and thinking about the impact that it'll bring?
I might play back what something you said earlier, Sarah, in the conversation, which is, you start from a problem space, right? Start with a problem, not a solution. And same thing was true here. So in that first example, the problem we were solving is like, how can we make sure that building AI fluency is available, accessible to everyone on the people team? How do we make that happen? And then in the second example of the AI automation engineer, the problem was how can we help folks deliver like really high grade AI solutions and get unblocked when they get stuck, and so on and so on. And then to the second part of your question around like, well, okay, once you have the problem and maybe you even have an idea of a role redesign that would solve it, like how do you actually get the buy-in to do it? Kind of like we heard from Amy and Manjari, like we've started to see some efficiency gains across the people team by virtue of some of the examples that we heard earlier. And that gives us a little bit of elbow room to think about investing in new roles or new responsibilities like the ones that we're talking about here. I'm still accountable to the same budget. But I will also tell you, if I thought there was an additional investment that we could make that would really help Zapier and our customers be more successful, that required like an additional check, I would definitely put it on the table, but I would do it in the problem-based way that you invited us into earlier.
Yep. Tie it back to a business problem that you're solving, right? Tie it back to your business strategy and how you'll get to do XYZ faster or with more impact and value. Amy and Manjari, I'm curious, are you starting to think about this or see different roles emerge, maybe within the HR space or maybe not? Maybe you're seeing it in other functions in the business since you really have a lens in like all the other functions and the impact that it's having on your strategy. I'm curious what you're seeing.
Absolutely, Sarika. I think I'll add on with the business partner lens on this. And these are the conversation. In fact, we have a leadership offsite, which is right now on, and we discussed this today. And we are putting the lens of, so I head HR for the GTM organization in the company. We are putting this lens on parts of GTM organization. There was a recent report by Gainsight that already all customer success teams are using, 50% of all customer success teams are using some form of AI. And there is humongous opportunity when we talk about all the predictive analytics that comes out of Gong AI that we use, which listens to customer calls, etc., to look at health metrics for customers, to look at where do we need retention efforts, renewal efforts, etc. So I think those are areas we are looking for efficiencies. And this also gives us the luxury. Most SaaS companies today, and I think Brandon also mentioned that your headcount is, the kind of the numbers that you get, that's precious, because you cannot have the luxury today to really go from this to this. Those were probably 2021s and 2022 years where we could literally jump and pivot on headcount and throw people at the problem. Today, you can't. So you have to get innovative. And there we're looking at automation across the workflows, say customer service, customer support, revenue operations, where you have a lot of insights, data that are collated today. In our world, still being done on Excel sheets, etc. Of course, we have the luxury of Miro boards, but how can we then enhance this? Along with that comes the discussion for the roles. What would our customer success managers need? And I don't know if some of you saw this recent post by Adobe. They have literally announced that they're going to hire engagement partners. They call them their CSMs as engagement partners, and they will come from mostly McKinsey's and BCG's and Bain's of the world, but they are looking for AI fluency in those roles. So we can see the shift. We also conducted a talent intelligence survey recently that said that most organizations, SaaS organizations, are also tilting towards the sales and the AE population that comes in. They should also come in with AI fluency. So it's a problem where we have to start thinking of how we are designing these job descriptions, but we also need to think of how we work this through our org design. Is it a buy problem? Is it a build problem? Are we going to look at a grow problem? I think it's all three. So upskilling is very important. It's easier said that, okay, AI will replace everything, but we don't live in a very perfect world. AI can only do something that is already there. I mean, if in the most lay man woman term, that's the thing. If it's not there, AI doesn't think it up. It's not a human being. It's not a philosopher. That's where human beings come through, right? So, and that's the problem with most of our organizations. Startups and scale-ups do not have knowledge repositories. We don't document things. If somebody leaves, you have the knowledge leaving with them. If we were the best, maybe the McKinseys and the Accentures of the world have that documentation. They can be really automated, but companies like us will take a lot of time to get automated. So we have to think how we transition, and in that transition, how do these jobs kind of come into play where you have the human in loop, but you have the automation also in loop, and you'll see new additions to job descriptions coming up. There'll be fun titles. I love what Brandon said on AI Fluency Captain. I'm definitely going to steal a version of that, so on and so forth. But we will see things change. I take an anecdote from my dad's profession. My father is a sailor. He used to be a merchant navy captain. And when he started his career, there was somebody known, and you probably have seen these people in the Titanic. There was somebody who would be a radio operator. That job never, it doesn't exist. It stopped existing, right? So that job is not there. But sailors have always navigated their trajectory with the help of stars. Despite having all kinds of technology, every sailor is still taught to navigate with the help of stars. So I think that's again going back to the fact that some part of your JD will still be needed, but a lot of that, maybe one third, depending on the profession, will definitely be automated by AI.
I'm totally going to use that analogy, like still guided by the stars. I love that.
Mm.
I'm going to shift course a little bit because it's something that you said triggered this other question in my mind is like AI is not just going to create it out of nowhere. Like it's got to get information from somewhere. But we're along that vein, what we're also seeing is, especially in a lot of the more Gen AI tools, is we're seeing more bias pop up potentially in the way that it might surface information, depending on where they got that information from and if it was biased to begin with. So I'll pop this over to you, Amy, as a starting point. Like, what frameworks or safeguards are you and Boomerang using to ensure that any AI driven, not just HR decisions, but decisions as a whole, leveraging AI, remain ethical and transparent and free from bias?
Yeah, we've put in multiple approvals when it comes to tech because we understand like this is a really big concern and we want to be deliberate. We don't want to speed through things and then, be in a headline later because of a decision that we made. And we're also, I mean, we always go back to the nonprofit customer and making sure we're doing right by the nonprofit. So I would say from a people team perspective, we've been really slow to move into areas in tech that would step into the talent process. It takes a little bit more manual work, but I think it's such an important part of the process to have our talent team members reviewing those resumes, having those conversations. And there are things we can do like Manjur, you've been talking about MetaView. We're using a product we're implementing called Bright Hire, which
Yeah.
does does something similar. It helps in the interview process for candidates to publish those scorecards so they can just really focus in on the conversation. And so that's where we've been really focused. But also, I mentioned the approval process. So we've brought in our IT team, so there's transparency there. Our corporate security team, so there's transparency there. We do a ton of due diligence up front. It's not something where you decide, hey, I want to buy this software and you implement it and no one knows. It's very much org wide. We want to make sure we have the checks and balances in place to be smart about our approach. And with that, we've been focusing on small pilots because ideally we'll get to a place where org wide we have tools that we use across the company and everyone has access to those tools. But as we look at things that can help with, scheduling, those types of tools, we have different pilots going on even right now. And then as we see the results, see, hey, did this product actually work like we were told it would work? Then we can make decisions so that there's the oversight, there's the consolidation, and we have the transparency of like, hey, this is the tool we're using at Bloomerang to solve this problem.
Yeah. So I'm curious, either you or even Brandon, have you or your team or anyone in your org encountered a situation where a AI tool that you were using did surface something that was biased? And how did you handle that if you've come across it yourself?
Not by, and maybe Brandon, well, Brandon is thinking, I think not by myself, Sarika, but I saw an example recently shared. And this lady had actually asked ChatGPT, I think, to talk about a suggestion on a salary ask for a particular job. And it was funnily interesting that if you put a male name there, the salary suggested by ChatGPT was higher. And the moment you put a female name, sounding name, it came up that, asked for a lesser salary. No one knows what's driving that. Where is this information? Why is, whatever ChatGPT or whatever tool that was is throwing up this information? So there's definite bias running behind it. Then if you look at the models that people are training with AI, and that's where things get tricky. I think one advantage in a country like Germany is we are so, with the GDPR aspect, there are a lot of checks and balances, like Amy said. So our legal team sits with a hawk's eye So much so sometimes to frustration when they start asking, okay, where is this data going? What will they do with it? As if, oh my God, come on, not all those questions. But it's also for the good. So if I think about situations, I think 2 or 3 years ago, there was a lot of hue and cry about Stack Overflow. And there's always a question at that point. I don't know if some of you would remember, there was a time when Stack Overflow also had a sourcing tool, and we used to hire via Stack Overflow at that point of time. And I was working with Zalando then, and we used to hire a lot through Stack Overflow, and we always saw that we could get more male engineers than women engineers from this particular source. And the hue and cry came through the fact that the conversations on Stack were very male dominated, and so much so a lot of women were ridiculed if they ask a question. Now, if you imagine, if you're pulling your Q&A data from somewhere, it's sourcing, blind sourcing from Stack from yesteryears, that will drive into your results as well. So that's a bit of a scary thought when you think about it. And one area where I'm really apprehensive about using AI is the tools that really claim that we are going to select the resumes that you should hire from. Absolutely no idea. No tool till date has been clearly able to say what are they selecting on the basis of, even if you're ranking, what are you looking for? What are you matching with? Where is your base data coming from? And I think when that happens, I remember our chief data officer actually saying that if there is a hard elimination happening or a hard selection happening, always ensure that the human is in loop. That is the first criteria to go with. And don't just eliminate based on what AI gives you.
I love that. What role? So with that, I mean, I'm curious, what if you're owning this today in your organization, like what role do you feel HR should play in setting the ethical AI standards within your organization?
Well, I think the first accountability is to the work that we're accountable for. So even in cases where, the HR team itself isn't setting ethical standards for the whole company, well, we better have them for for ourselves, especially to Manju's point. Like, these are some of the most like deeply personal decisions that happen in the company are made by and through our talent systems and practices, and we're accountable for those. And I agree with what we heard from Manju about keeping humans in the loop for those, like, kind of like just like fork in the road decisions: hire, not hire, promote, not promote, equity refresh, no equity refresh, and so on. It's just like, someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, like, well, what would have to be true in terms of how AI matures such that, an organization like Zapier would start letting AI actually make those decisions without a human in the loop? And I did not have a ready answer to that. I think it's going to be we'll know it when we see it, but until it kind of hits us over the head because it's so obvious, we're keeping the humans. As our CTO has this. Oh, by the way, this gets to ethics too. One thing I believe about like AI policies and what have you is that I think like principles within these policies are as important as rules. And the reason that strikes me is because what the technology does and our understanding of like the right guardrails and what have you, it's changing really quickly. And so I think some rules have a place in an overarching like AI policy or AI ethics guidelines, but I think principles are like big ideas that people can apply in their own judgment and context are also very valuable. And I'll just give a specific example. Our CTO Brian has a saying that is basically one of our principles for kind of safe and effective AI use. Brian says, with AI you can delegate some of the work, you cannot delegate the accountability. And you just think about the power of that simple idea as people are making all of these infinitesimal decisions that a policy, at least a rules-based policy, can't possibly keep up with or account for. So I do think the principles are a nice complement to some hard and fast rules, which also have their place.
And yeah, you said this in your session yesterday, and that really, I remember being in the chat, and that really landed with so many people. AI can delegate the work, but it cannot delegate the accountability. And it's a pretty powerful statement. I really love that. I'm going to steal that.
Sarika, just to add to that, I think one aspect that we forget is governance. And most of our organizations have ERGs. When we are looking at AI tools, we really forget to leverage ERGs. should be a step in adoption or even testing, etc., where we can bring probably 1 or 2 ERG representatives to test the tool and see what we are not seeing.
I
love
really,
that.
yeah, I really think like when we talk about culture, we talk about how, a lot of times HR teams get pegged with that. Like we own the culture, but we all know the culture is built by everyone. It really comes from leadership. It's something that's shared. We may raise red flags or concerns, but ultimately it needs to be something where it's a shared responsibility. I think of that similarly with AI of, hey, we should be raising concerns, red flags, but it still needs to be a conversation at the top with leadership and something that everyone's sharing in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the core of all of this also is building trust inside of your organization. And that's true not just for this AI transformation that so many are going through, but also I think in any change that you drive in an organization, you have to sort of start with this foundation of trust. And so I'll leave this us with this like final question before we go to a live Q&A is like, since we know how critical it is to build trust amongst our organization, especially with something like AI being so new and it's people are scared and fearful for all the obvious reasons. I'm curious, what's one strategy that each of you have used or are using inside of your organization to bring your employees along on this journey such that they feel the guard is down, they feel more comfortable, they're learning, they're experimenting, they're building AI fluency, and they're really starting to get some really great like lift and impact from using something like AI.
I think the first and foremost, Sarika, with any change or any new technologies may create awareness. And you have two kinds of population mostly in organizations. One, which is tech heavy, they are more aware of how things work in the world of AI. And then you have the entire non-tech population, which is listening to all the media noise as well, that your jobs are going to be taken over by AI, etc. So focusing on internal campaigns on how the company is thinking about AI, what is the leadership vision about this, number one. Number two, an example from, again, OLX, my previous organization, we partnered with Udacity to literally have some kind of probably a lighter version of nano degrees for everybody in the organization to have 101 of what AI is, to understand. And one of the things that we requested them to add in was this, try to remove the fear of thinking just that, okay, this is going to come and take my job, but rather think about how it will help you augment in your job, help you grow, and not continue with the grunt part of your work.
Brandon, how about you? Oh, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember when I first brought AI up to the team back in 2023, it was in a team meeting and I was going through some use cases and, I'm expecting people to say, oh, this is really exciting. And the question I got was, are we allowed to use AI? Is this allowed? And it seems funny now where we're at in the world, but that was like the first step for our team, just to say, yes, let's use it. This is something that we want to lean into. And so now it's been that continued learning together. So our team and multiple teams across the org, we use our team sync time to talk about what we're learning and to bring in other people across the org who have done some amazing things with AI to be able to share. Our team sync every other week. We're specifically talking about, okay, what have you built? What has been a learning? What is the professional development you've done here? Did you see this headline? What do you all think about it? So that we're not just talking about it and thinking about it individually, but it's brought to the team, and then it becomes something where maybe we make some mistakes. Had a team member, share coming up against a blocker when it came to something they were trying to build with AI. That's really helpful to hear because then it makes it comfortable to understand, okay, other people are trialing and not always succeeding because, you only see the wins, you only hear about the wins, but it's super helpful to be able to hear from other team members who are out there trying and maybe not always hitting it, but still pushing forward and trying to learn.
Well, I would tell you, I think Amy and Manjari said it best. Let's do some live Q&A.
Yeah, amazing. Let's do it. Okay. So we had a question that was asked earlier. How do you deal with privacy issues, especially when recording interviews or meetings for developmental purposes?
Good question. I can share just a practical like way we think about it for interviews at Zapier. So for the candidate, we like to provide choice. So candidates can opt out of having their interviews recorded, but we do share why we record them in the first place, and we find that just
Mhm.
folks knowing the why and like where it will and will not be used, where it will and will not be stored, how long data retention policy, how long will we hold on to the recording, just providing that context. Like it's just maybe not surprising that you'd see those like opt-in rates go, or it's really an opt-out, the opt-out rates go way down when people have transparency about the why and the who and the what. On the interviewer side, we do not allow our interviewers to opt out, because the reason we record, for the interviewer's perspective, the reason why we record these is so we can coach folks up in a way that simply isn't possible otherwise. And we believe we owe it both to the organization and to candidates to make sure that interviewers are skillful, like the very best they can be. And this is a really powerful way that we deliver on that.
Yep, that's how we handle it. And I think a big piece of it is training. So I mentioned we were moving in this direction, and as we go to implementation and go live, that's what we're talking about as a team is, okay, how do we ensure that we're communicating with our hiring teams about the why behind this so they can really understand and not have that fear.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common across all organizations with the recording bit. The aspect of any kind of recording for developmental discussions, etc. I think that's a bit of a tricky route with most legal and risk teams in Europe, at least, because that's something that have. So initially, we had to answer a lot of questions when we were talking about interview recording, and the need was literally restricted to interviews only, and not beyond that in the talent process at that particular time.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to this point is to anchor on the why you're doing this in the first place. I just happened to be right before this call I was on with our legal and security team having this exact conversation on we have our, we use a meeting note taker called Fellow, and we want it to be turned on in all internal meetings except for these particular meetings. And why? Because so much information, so much feedback on like we could do remote work better. How do we surface information better? How can we have an AI Vijardian that is indexed in a lot of places, and you can ask questions and oh, a decision was made about, I don't know, our product roadmap, where you could just ask the question versus going to someone in product, waiting for them to respond in Slack, then you're waiting, and then you're like frustrated if they don't respond right away, or you've now disrupted their flow in the work that they're doing, right? And so it just gives us data and it gives us information to surface faster so we can work better together and more collaboratively. But there's obviously the very real side of this and like the legal and security and privacy, because while my company is Canadian based, we also are in the US, and there's different provinces and different states have different consent and recording and laws of that nature. And so these are all things in HR that we have to think about when we're articulating the why behind it, but then also putting some pen to paper on, like, to your point, Brandon, these are our principles that we're going to adhere to. And then here are some of the rules or expectations and policies that we will also make sure that we adhere to, knowing full well that this could evolve as fast as AI is evolving every day. Another question that came through: how do you address team concerns on environmental impact of AI with new data centers and questions of ethics and who is impacted? For context, I work in solar with a mission to improve the environment. And so naturally people, as am I, are concerned, and yet leadership is mandating integration.
I
That's
gotta
a good
tell you,
one. That's a
I
tough
like
one.
the question. I really like the question. Couple things. Like with other vendor choices that a lot of our organizations are making, environmental impact is, it's like, should it be a factor? I think it should be a factor. I'm not seeing a lot of differentiation across the different model providers or vendors right now on environmental impact, unfortunately, but I hope and expect that will be the case. And the good news is, a lot of our organizations already account for environmental impact when we're making vendor decisions. Now,
Mhm.
this is what I'm about to say is debatable, but in Zapier's case, it is not an option for us to sit out. Our mission is to make automation work for everyone. AI is, from a technology point of view, probably the biggest possible step forward we can take on the way to that mission that we've had since we started the company 14 years ago. And so we cannot wait for the environmental impact piece of this equation to be sorted, if it ever will be fully sorted in the way that a lot of us would hope for. But I do think we should account for it when we're making choices about with whom and how we build with it.
Right. And that's pretty powerful what that last part that you just said there is like, yes, and like, this is who we are as an organization. This is our product. This is what we need to do to be able to continue to be an organization that is growing and building capabilities and make automation easy for everyone and have access to it. And so I think there's something that's just an important point to make is we are not going to have all the answers. And I think it's okay to also say, I don't have all the answers. But these are the things that we are doing. And like you said, these are the things we are considering in terms of who we're doing business with and the vendors and how they're considering these things. Same could be true, not even just for environmental impact, but these, the ethics and bias and all that. Like, these are all questions that we ask when we really look at vendors that we're thinking about bringing in. But ultimately, there's so much we don't know. There's so much that, these companies don't know yet. But I think there's something to be said about standing in your truth and being clear on like, but this is who we are and we can't afford to not. And so it's also okay for anybody to make a decision to self-select out if that's not something that they're comfortable with. And I think there's something important to that too. It can be I think it's sometimes hard for HR leaders to toe that line on like, we want to be thinking about all these things. And yes, I do care about these things, but in some regard, I can't necessarily give you the straightest answer or wait for that because of where we are in the business. We've dealt with this ourselves inside of our own organization, moving faster with AI than people were once comfortable with. Of course, some leave, some come along on that journey and they're like, oh, you were right. But I think that's a really solid point, and a big takeaway also. Manjari or Amy, sort of any final thoughts from either of you there?
I think the point you made about like the employee coming along or saying, you know what, this isn't the right fit for me, realizing that organizations are going to grow and evolve. And like Brandon said, we're doing our best. This is something that we're considering, but also there are larger global impacts at play that we're, out of our control. And so at the same time, understanding, hey, like for Bloomerang, we care about our nonprofits and we want to do what's best for them. And we want to push and drive so that they can raise more. And that's super important. So that's the why. We've talked about it a couple times on this call. Like, why are we doing this? It's not just to use AI, but it's for a very, very important purpose. And so then being upfront with employees so that if there is a level of discomfort or, hey, my values are not aligned with your values, then you can have a different conversation from there.
I would probably just add, and I love, Brandon, that you put that out, right out there, super boldly. And it's a fact. Not everything is in our control, or not everything is in the company's control. There's a mission that we are following as well. I think with AI, it is though important that we open some channels of communication upwards from employees at least, or our, in case of investors and shareholders, etc., because we could be blind to some things. It could be environment, it could be anything else. Maybe because things like Sarika said earlier, right? Things are moving so fast that you may not even know something, and without knowing, some decisions have been made. And that's where I think that communication or information is still needed. And then, of course, a decision can be made on that. So those channels need to, and I don't think we've created those channels yet in most of our organizations.
Yeah, I think it's such a solid point. It could be as simple as like you create a Slack channel. Ours is called AI Captain, AIA Captain. They voted on it. It was something fun to get people involved, and all sorts of stuff gets thrown in there. And it's funny, it's fun. We're learning, we're laughing, we're crying like on the fails and the mistakes that we're making. But that's sort of part of it, is creating the environment to the psychological safety for people to feel comfortable experimenting, learning, and also to be vulnerable and say, I don't know. Because like, I don't know. Like, I don't know all the answers. Brandon doesn't know. You don't know. Amy doesn't know. Manjari, we don't know. We're learning the same way that everybody else is learning. And I think there's a little bit of grace that has to come with any type of new innovation or change. And I think we're definitely in the throes of probably some of the biggest innovation of our time. But coming in with the more real and human and vulnerable we can be as leaders, and saying like, I don't have all the answers, but here's what we are going to do. And here's what we're not going to do. I think also is where we need to be, and sort of where we need to live to make people feel a bit more comfortable and create that trust and safety. Okay, so I know we are up at time. Like, I want to make sure I wrap this up. This was an incredible session. I want to thank this panel for joining us today, sharing so many thoughts, bold perspectives, tactical things that you all are doing, what you're learning in your own journeys in your organization. You shared some pretty awesome strategies for the folks on the call today. If you're live here with us today and you pre-registered, we to these upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure we'll send out the recordings. You'll hear more about what's coming next. We have 2 more sessions to round out the year, so those will come up. I think the next one's coming up later on in September or early October. Again, thanks again for being part of this series. I hope you continue to find them valuable. And if you haven't already checked out GoProfiles yet, please do. It's a valuable tool from HR teams, GTM teams, engineering, IT. They all love it. They, again, will offer a free trial. So go to their website and check it out and reach out to the team there. All right. Thank you so much, Amy, Brandon, Manjari. Awesome to be here with you today. Thank you for letting me be here and giving me the grace to stop in last minute. And we will see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sarah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.